Hello everyone, welcome back to Reading Through the Generations. In this week's video, I wanted to share some favorite reads of mine, but with a spin. This time of year, I look forward to the return of the Great British Bake Off, and so inspired by the first week's episode, I chose some books I want to recommend. So if you're unfamiliar with the show, basically the premise is you have 12 amateur bakers competing for Star Baker every week. There's a series of 3 challenges in every episode. You start with a signature bake, then there's the technical challenge, and it ends with the ultimate showstopper. So in the first round, bakers had to bake a Swiss roll, and this wasn't your typical Little Debbie sponge cake. They had to come up with a design so when you rolled up the sponge cake, it revealed a very intricate, beautiful inlaid pattern. So when thinking of a dessert to recommend for this challenge, I wanted one that was rich and deep, yet maintained a lightness throughout the story. I also wanted one that was a little bit more obscure than the classic Heidi story that is often associated with Switzerland. And so for this, I am going to suggest The Unfinished Angel by Newbery Award winner Sharon Creech. This is one I listened to on Libby and was absolutely delightful. It is a humorous and telling story about humanity through the lens of an angel who has gotten a bit stuck in their routine as they observe daily life among a remote Swiss village. The angels' very existence, down to their habits and ideas, get challenged upon meeting a very idealistic and determined girl named Zola. The character of the angel is one of the most endearing narrators you'll ever meet, and it's everything I'd want in a story representing this nostalgic dessert. And on to the technical challenge. For this, bakers needed to make fondant fancies, and there was a cheeky twist that we'd never seen before. This was Paul's choice, and bakers were not told the flavor profile of the cake, and so all that they were given was a sample of Paul's cake to taste and a variety of ingredients, and using their taste buds they had to figure out the flavor profile, and it was indeed almond raspberry fondant fancies. When I think of this dessert, I think of a sweet traditional layer cake, but in cute itty bitty form. And then since there were twists that made it a bit chaotic for the bakers, this just reminded me of the Eloise books written by Kay Thompson. I believe they were illustrated by Hilary Knight. I could only find my copy of Eloise Takes a Bath. I believe the first book was titled Eloise, a book for precocious grown-ups. I don't think there is any other beloved bookish character from my personal childhood that epitomizes this dessert better than Eloise. She is a spunky little New Yorker who lives at the Plaza Hotel with her nanny and pet turtle and pug. Her playfulness, mischievous personality just speaks to the cheeky twist Paul provided to the challenge as well. And then I also have another book I want to recommend, and that's The River Has Roots by Amal El-Mohtar. And this is a beautiful queer fairy tale retelling of the Bonnie Swans, and it was also inspired by Amal's loving relationship with her own sister as they grew up in Lebanon. And it's one of my new favorite novellas, and it tells the story of two siblings, Esther and Isabel, who come from a mysterious family who for generations have cared for and overlooked this willow forest that lies on the banks of a magical river. Reflective of this challenge, the book has a lot of ambiguity and the sisters' differing personalities as they grow up together, and even the dainty appearance of the book. It's a little under 100 pages long. It's a quite moving story in that it delves into somewhat darker themes, as most fairy tales do. And then we have the showstopper. For this challenge, bakers were tasked with making a landscape cake. It could be any flavor, any type of cake, but it had to have meaning to them. So I guess I'm thinking about the cake I would make. Since I grew up along the Oregon coast, I would have to center my cake around that landscape. Since it was my childhood playground, I would have a mountainous cliff overlooking a very windy and very cold beach. There would be hidden tidal pools, and I would have to have a massive ship as my centerpiece of my showstopper cake. Since this challenge was so personalized, I went with local authors, and one that I was read to a lot by my teachers and librarians growing up was Richard Kennedy, and all his books were pretty much inspired by the coastal landscape in which I grew up in. And the book I want to recommend for this challenge is Delta Baby and Two Sea Songs. This is a delightful and absolutely stunning poetry book for children and adults alike. It is a work of art, as you'll see. The illustrators are Lydia Dobkovich, Charles Mikolajczyk, and Jim Arnosky, who is a personal favorite. Silliness abounds in the lines of Stinky Pete and the wreck of the Linda Deer. My favorite, though, is the title poem Delta Baby, which is a very poignant one that I think adults it will resonate with them because of its relevancy. And another component of my landscape cake would have to be the forest in which I played in growing up, and the book that I want to recommend for this is Canopy of Titans by Paul Koberstein and Jessica Applegate, the life and times of the great North American temperate rainforest. Koberstein and Applegate are local journalists. They also collaborated with indigenous communities who have been stewards of this vital natural resource and the endangered ecosystems and public health that is at stake as they continue to advocate for its protection. So this is another one I highly recommend. And the baker that we had to say goodbye to was Hassan, which this part always makes me so sad. In honor of his Yorkshire roots and scientific background, I want to recommend a series of memoirs set there, and that's All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot. This tells the story of a young man fresh out of veterinarian school, and we follow him as he sets off on a new career as a country vet. We see all the quirky characters, animal and human, that he meets as he adjusts to his new life. To celebrate Natalia's bakes, she became the show's first Ukrainian star baker. I am going to recommend The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. This is such a lovely story that has a lot of depth. We follow a solitary fortune teller named Tao. She only travels with her mule as a companion, and she believes that she does not possess enough power to tell greater fortunes, until one day she foresees the fortune of an ex-mercenary who is searching for his young missing child, and reluctantly Tao gets involved, and along the way gains a newfound family, which includes an apprentice baker, and Tao learns some valuable lessons along the way. There are many scenes throughout this cozy fantasy that you will find comforting and heartwarming, just like Natalia's bakes. And that wraps up my book recommendations. Please let me know what some of your book suggestions would be for any of these bakes, and if you've read any of these books, I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. Take good care, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.